call the meeting to order. If we could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Item number 3, can I get a motion to hear and consider and authorize the purchasing authority to enter into a proposed contract with Burns Construction Company to provide all labor, materials, equipment, and all else necessary to perform the sanitary sewer line extension at Carriage Drive as detailed in bid 2023-124 in the amount not to exceed $209,106, with the additional authority to execute change orders to said contract in the amount not to exceed $20,910 for a combined grand total of the amount not to exceed $230,616. Per the sewer installment agreement, 50% of the installment cost will be paid by the Water Pollution Control Authority, and 50% will be paid by each homeowner who is party to the project. Homeowners will also be responsible for related hookup charges. Motion to approve?
So moved.
And I'll second it.
Okay, very good. We have Bill Hurley, we have Adam, and believe the town attorney is supposed to be coming on. Bill, do you want to?
Sure. Good evening, I'm Bill Hurley. You have the mic, Bill? Oh, that's right. There we go. Just have to press it once, though. Hi, good afternoon. I'm Bill Hurley, Engineering Manager, and with me is Adam Tulin, Purchasing Director. And we're here to accept or have the town accept the contract between Burns Construction, the apparent low bidder, for the sanitary sewer line extension along Carriage Drive. In the backup material, there was a sewer installment agreement. This project went through all 4 boards, including the 3 town ones and the WPCA last year. We just assume it's a straightforward contract. We have, as I said, service agreement. We have support from the neighborhood, obviously. Matter of fact, a couple of them emailed me saying that they're looking forward to the Board of Selectmen meeting, and another one that says this is an encouraging update, so they are definitely chomping at the bit for this project to begin. And we, and Tom will be glad to hear this, we are within the engineer's estimate on this one. So, and we're here to answer any questions. Adam, I don't know if you have anything else to add?
Let me just open it up to the board.
Sure.
Does anyone have any questions on this item?
Bill, the estimate that was put in of 230, so about 115 to be paid by the town and then 115 to be paid by the affected residents. Is that correct?
Yes, that's my understanding as well. It's 50-50 with the neighborhood there, and actually the neighborhood paid a little bit more because they paid for the original engineering design as well.
So, and they're all signed up so that...
Sorry, this is Jared.
Go ahead.
The half is being paid for by the WP. You said the town. I just want to...
Oh, okay, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, that was in the motion.
But the 115 that's being paid, that's signed up, that's kind of locked and loaded from the resident side of it. In other words, how solid are these numbers?
They're based on the bid, and there is a contingency involved in that. If the contingency is not used, then the numbers will go down. If the contingency is used, the numbers will go up to that point.
Yeah, I think I framed it the wrong way. I meant the revenue side, not necessarily the expense side. So in other words, we're signing something here, and we've got to do the 230 in total. The expectation is the funding is going to come 50% from WPCA and 50% from the residents. Have the residents already agreed to pay that amount, I guess, is what I'm talking. is what I'm asking.
Do you know? Oh, okay.
There are 5 signed agreements in your backup.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
And
Okay.
those amounts they're all the way at the end of it, so they're all signed, and it's not based on a dollar amount, but rather based on their percentage of the cost and what was estimated.
I didn't see the dollar amount.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jared. That's kind of what I was asking. But they realize how much this is going to be for them?
They when this was actually approved by the board, it was actually approved at a higher amount.
Yeah.
I believe it was 300,000.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
So yes, they are aware, and there's also, in addition to the 50%, they're paying an initial
hookup
charge.
fees. Yeah. No, I got that. I just wanted to make sure that there were no surprises on the cost of this for the residents, because it's a steep amount for this few residents. Fair enough.
And the fee can be spread out over the 20 years, too.
Right. Now, has this, obviously, Brenda had spoken about the town attorney. I looked at the backup. I saw the bidding process. It went through our standard bidding process. Can that be confirmed? And there's no issues with the contract with the town attorney? Can I assume that as well?
Yes, we went through, this is Adam Toolin, purchasing director. Yes, we went through the normal bidding process, and I provided the town attorney with sort of our standard boilerplate contract. I'm not sure if he's on the call yet. No.
Tom, the other thing I could add is the apparent low bid is Burns Construction. They do a lot of utility work. They've done work in the town. If that makes a difference, I don't know, but we have worked with this company before.
Okay.
Nancy, do you have anything?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, if there's no further comment from the board, is there any comment from the public? Seeing none? Back to the board? All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, good to see you. Item number 4, can I get a motion to hear and consider and authorize the purchasing authority to enter into a proposed contract with Abbey Tent Party Rentals to provide all labor, materials, equipment, and all else necessary to perform the event tent install and removal at Burr Homestead as detailed in bid 2023-123 in the amount not to exceed $45,665 for the 2023 rental season. Motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have our purchasing director here. I know we've done this before. This is standard for the Burr Homestead, and also have Anthony on the line. I'll open it up to the board.
Anthony, quick question. What's the revenue coming from this year?
Off the top of my head, goodness gracious, hold on, give me 1 second, because I've got my budget book here. We literally just covered this throughout the entire budget process.
I know.
Yeah.
No, I apologize. I should know this one off the top of my head, and I don't. I believe it was 50,000. Yep, 51,000 is the revenue.
So we make $6,000 by doing this? That's it?
Nope. We lose 25,000.
We lose 25. Okay, why is this a good business model?
At the current time, it's not.
Yeah, we talked about this at length during the budget, how the History Center gave it over to us because they didn't want to do it anymore. We had all the complaints.
I remember that part.
We had all the complaints from the neighbors, so kind of slowed down the rentals there, and we're still trying to determine how we're going to move forward after the next season.
If I may, Tom, if we do book the additional 6 opening dates, we'll break even.
Yep.
So that's where we are at the moment.
Right. That's what I was trying to put all the pieces together on this. Why did you pare this down so that we're doing something smaller? What are we doing? Yeah. What are we doing to try to minimize the loss here, Anthony? Because I assume we have to do this because we've rented it out and we've got contracts, right?
That's correct. We do have contracts with the 10 parties that are on the books. That's essentially what we're doing. We're trying to keep the rest of our costs down as far as staffing and operating supplies. Until, again, once the administration decides what we want to do in 24, if we're going full blast, full steam ahead here, renting for events and weddings, then, there's potential to make about $80,000 a year. But that's kind of where we top out at the current price model.
Right, that part I get. I just don't want to lose money this year if we can avoid it. That's also, are you actively soliciting those next 6 dates?
Yeah, we are.
Any bites?
We have inquiries every day, so I do think that we'll fill those 6.
Okay, so you think that at best we'll break even here, but we're not going to lose the 25?
I believe that is true. Yep.
And when's the business model here? What's the administration's game plan on kind of making decisions on that going forward? Do we know?
We haven't decided yet. We're still awaiting, as it's been reported in the paper and just around, that the RTM was currently looking at a noise ordinance that has now been moved back to the L&A committee. So we're not really quite sure how that's all going to pan out. The way it's currently written would restrict us to even have any events there. So that's one thing. And then we're also looking at what other utilizations we could use for the building. So we're just not there yet. A lot of things to go through and think through.
And again, this went through the standard process, and there's no issues with the contract or anything like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, we use the same as has been used in the past. This goes up every year. The 10, yeah.
It went out to bid, and there was one bidder, and that's the one we have here, Abby Chen.
Can I jump on that, actually?
Sure.
So can you talk more about that process? Because my understanding is this is not a budgeted item from fiscal year 23. It's not in the budget. So how does that work? Can you talk about that and the timing and who negotiates that and how we account for it and what the purchasing process is? Because it just brings to question if this is an item that is not budgeted. I just want to make sure the checks and balances are in place. And so I'm just confused with this.
Yeah, no worries. Hopefully I can clarify it for you. So when we took this over, at some point last summer, the museum cut a check for about $100,000, a little over $100,000 of all the money that they had taken in deposits for future parties. So that's the money we actually have sitting on a balance sheet right now, and that's the money that will be used to pay for things of this nature, the staffing, the tent rental, cleaning supplies, all of that kind of stuff. At the end of this fiscal year, that money will go into the surplus because we're going to have a surplus based on just having all those deposits. So it's actually that budget for next year, the one we just went through the whole process with you guys and then the Board of Finance, where the Board of Finance did add the money, the expense side of things to the Parks and Rec budget and to the revenue side. So it is accounted for in the next budget. But this budget, you're right, it's not in there as a line item. It just says Burr Mansion. It doesn't have a number attached to it. But again, it's sitting on a balance sheet because of that check we took in from the Fairfield Museum.
So is this the right process then, that it comes to us, even though it wasn't a line item? Doesn't it need to go to the Board of Finance? I'm just confused about this, and especially since you said, so we have revenue coming in from events, but then you said it's a loss. So maybe I'm not following your train here of thought, but.
You wouldn't be the first person to say that to me. No, so again, there was a large sum of money that came in, about $100,000 in deposits from parties that were already on the book. So all the future parties, everybody that put a deposit down, museum had to turn that money over to the town. So it's sitting in a line item right now in the Parks and Rec budget, which is not budgeted for. So it would show up as a surplus. As far as having to go back to the Board of Finance, I don't believe that we're out of order here at all because they don't approve contracts, and this contract is over the $10,000 threshold and more than 30 days in duration, so it would come to the Board of Selectmen, which is why we're here. We haven't had to do this in the past because the museum typically would have rented the tent. That's why this is the first time you guys are seeing that one.
I agree with you on the contract, but it is an interesting question as it relates to the expenditure itself. Because the 100,000 comes into the town coffers, which is fine, but that's just like, thankfully, we've had surpluses in many years, right? So that happens. But then the expense itself hasn't been approved by the other town bodies, which is really, I think, Nancy's point, which is an interesting one, is does the Board of Finance have to approve the expenditure, because otherwise it's an unauthorized expenditure, even though I understand, A, I think you're right, it's got to come before the Board of Selectmen, and B, somebody, either the History Museum or the town, needs to pay the money because we've got a contract to provide the service. You see what I'm saying, Anthony? I think
But if I could
procedurally,
finish
it's an interesting question. Sorry, Nance.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, you are echoing what I was saying, but what I just wanted to finish was, because you said it was a loss, but isn't really, if the flip side is we've booked those things out. So there's two things at play. What Tom just echoed, but then also it's not necessarily a bad business model because people have rented it. So they need someplace to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think what he said was the revenue that's on the books so far doesn't cover necessarily the total cost of providing the service. So at this point in time, unless we book 5, 6 more events, we still would be operating at a deficit for the fiscal year, right?
That's
Anthony,
correct.
if I followed you correctly.
That's correct.
Right, but these people have contracts, and I'm not sure how that would turn out.
That's right. Look, it's an interesting point that Nancy raises. I don't know that the train necessarily stops here. I think for approving the contract is one thing, but I do think for the expenditure, you might have to go a little further.
I just was pointing it out because I remember the discussion from the Board of Finance about fiscal year 24, which prompted me to look back. And I saw it not as a budgeted item, and I know Burr has been an issue of much discussion. And then in light of the fact that Penfield, I just was prompted to look. So again, maybe we need to go through the approval now, but it just bears to mind, process and how it came to be in terms of purchasing. And if we're not the next stop, we just need to make sure those checks and balances are still in place after it goes through this body.
I understand what you're saying. I don't have the answer, though, unfortunately.
I think we need to defer to the town attorney, but I think it's definitely worthy of consideration because this is an unbudgeted expenditure, even though you have the revenue. And again, I'm not here to hold this up because I think we have the obligation because we took the funds.
Nor I, by the way.
Yeah.
But again, there's Abbey Tent, fine, they're a great company, but there's Taylor Tent. Like, what was the process? So I just want
So the process is it gets publicly bid. There was one other company that sent in questions about the tent and had some inquiries with the purchasing department, but ultimately they didn't submit a bid. So it's publicly bid, but Abbey Tent was the only company that did put a bid in, and this is about $15,000 higher than their normal submission. So by going through the town process, we also cost ourselves about $15,000.
Really?
Yeah, last year it was about $30,000 for the tent.
sorry, can you explain that last statement? By going through the town process, it cost us $15,000?
Right. So in the past, the town's never had to rent this tent. It's always been a cost of the museum, who doesn't follow town purchasing rules, right? So you guys would have never signed off on the tent. So they work out a deal with Abbey Tent or Taylor Rentals or, XYZ company, and that's who they go with. So when we got the invoice this year for the tent, it was $34,000. I said, well, we're not going to just sign off on $34,000. This hasn't been properly bid. So we went through the purchasing department, put it out to properly bid the item. And again, like I said, one other company had asked questions, and Abbey Tent was the only one that submitted a bid, and their bid was at whatever we're at now, $45,000 or $46,000. So that's significantly higher than past years.
I also just want to make the comment because, and it's something I'd like to go back to because I remember when we were discussing this, I could be conflating things, but I have a recollection that this was pitched as a good thing for the town, that we were taking over Burr Mansion and the rentals, and now I'm hearing a sort of a different story to that. So I'd just be interested to hear sort of thoughts on that. I'm not interested in holding it up. I think we have to get a tent. The reality is here we are. Because we contractually owe events to people. But I just think, I'm interested in the narrative. So I'd either, if you have a different recollection, or it just seems like we're singing a different song today.
Well, we didn't really I don't think we really had a choice here, Nancy. I mean, they didn't want it anymore. And so they wanted out. So it was basically, we had to take it. We did want to have more control because we do maintain the building. When the residents were complaining, they were coming, to us. So it made sense. There really wasn't another option. It's our building. And there were items, events planned on it, booked on it. And so the History Center was very clear. They no longer wanted to be in charge of it. So it's kind of where we were.
And I don't think the narrative has changed on this at all. I think this still has an opportunity to be a great venue for events and weddings.
Yeah.
However, we've got to somehow balance the needs of the neighborhood or the wants of the neighborhood and what's financially viable. Running this space like a Penfield Pavilion or a Jackie Durrell Pavilion, where we can turn multiple parties a weekend and make a profit on that, that is not an acceptable solution right now for that neighborhood. So, the minimum amount of parties really to break even is somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 or 36 parties, which is, one a weekend basically, which is what the neighbors would like to see. But, is it worth the hassle and the manpower of, staffing this and doing all this work for break even? Again, it's a great asset for the town and it is a viable thing, but not, if we're not trying to churn parties in and out of there and do almost 50 or 60 parties where we could actually make $100,000 on it, I'm not sure. But again, I don't think our story is changing. I think it really is just the reality of trying to play nice with the neighbors at the moment.
Explain, Anthony, if I might for a second, it went from 30 to 45. And it's because of the town bidding process. Why, when you guys went back and questioned him as to why it went up so much, what was the answer?
It's just the market.
Have we been able to confirm that others have seen a 50% increase in cost?
That I don't know.
But sorry, Anthony, we have to be careful because a second ago you said it cost the town because we took it over. It cost the town. And I just want to make sure your intention is not to suggest that trading off of responsibility and ownership. That's not what cost the town the $15,000. Inflation and whatever else is the $15,000. Is that, or are you not saying that? Are you saying?
No, honestly, I don't have an answer for you other than the invoice that I received or my office received in, January or February for this same item prior to going out to bid was only $34,000. After it went out to bid, it came in higher. Again, I can't speak to why, and if there were multiple bids on it, maybe they would have all come in higher. Maybe one would have come in. I don't know that one would have come in lower. I apologize for my email. I'm sitting at my desk. I should have closed it out. So sorry for all that dinging.
We don't even hear it, I don't think. At least I don't.
Sorry.
If I could just say anecdotally, I don't have hard facts and figures for you, but this is sort of a common concern when you're going to utilize the public bidding process for maybe something that hasn't been publicly bid before. I think what Anthony was sort of saying before, previously the museum was able to just kind of come up with deals on the side, whereas now we're bound by an FOIable, public process. So a company might not want to put their lowball number in a public document. That could be a reason. I can't give you anything more concrete than that, but it is a risk sometimes of going through the public bidding process that the numbers might look different.
Good.
Yeah, and I guess I would just say, like everything else, is probably, rising costs, inflation and whatnot. So here we are. Anyway, I don't have any further questions. Just would be curious in terms of the follow-up, which Anthony said is not your purview. I understand. But it being an unbudgeted expense, I just want to have that question asked for the record. So thanks. That's it.
Okay. Is there any comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Adam. Item number 5, can I get a motion? Anybody want to make a motion to waive the reading?
Yeah, I'm just sorry. I'm catching up. I move to waive the reading for item 5.
Thank you.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so it marks here, obviously you have this in the agenda and it's posted publicly, and so I'm just going to hand it over to Mark.
Thank you. There it is.
Yeah.
Mark Barnhart, Director of Community Economic Development. Just briefly, we have an opportunity to apply for grant funding under the state's Municipal Brownfield Grant Program to assist with the remediation and redevelopment of a property at 81 Black Rock Turnpike, which is next to the Fairfield Metro Center train station. The site was once home to the Bullard Machine Tool Company, as was much of the area surrounding Fairfield, including the existing train station. Earlier this year, the Office of Brownfield Remediation and Development put out a notice of funding availability. We would like to apply. Only municipalities, economic development agencies, or land banks are eligible to apply for funds, although the state does allow and encourage communities to form public-private partnerships to remediate these brownfield sites. So there's a total of $25 million available. You can apply for grant awards of up to $4 million. We're looking at our remediation costs somewhere around $3 million by using that in the royal sense, because the town is not the owner of this property, doesn't intend to take ownership of the property. We're working with a private development company that has a contract to purchase the property and is looking at remediation costs of about upwards of $3 million, more or less. So the intent here is to work with Post Road Realty to apply for these funds, to help with the remediation costs, to allow for this site to be successfully redeveloped. Post Road is the developer of the Anchorage, which is downtown, a 9-unit residential development. The principals are all Fairfield residents. They have a boutique real estate development company that's very active in the real estate market, so we're very comfortable working with them. But I would point out that just because we apply doesn't necessarily commit the town to, or Post Road Realty for that matter, entering into a contract to accept the grant funds. There are no costs directly to the town other than my time and Terry Brown's time to put the application together. But we do think this is a worthwhile endeavor that would allow for the site to be cleaned up expeditiously. So with that, I'll close and take questions from the board. Really what I was trying to do was, as I indicated, the grant application makes note of the fact that they're trying to encourage public-private partnerships. I was trying to signal our willingness to do that through this resolution, which would authorize the submission of a grant application, and our willingness to partner with Post Road Realty for that purpose. And that's really the substance of what we're trying to do through this resolution. So happy to take questions at this time.
Thank you, Mark. Open it up to the board. Tom?
Yeah, so Mark, this is basically, if we get these funds, we can assist in the, and not taking on any liability or whatever, but we basically assist in getting this property cleaned up so that it can be redeveloped and add to our tax rolls. Is that
Correct.
the way to say it?
Correct.
Yeah, I don't see any downside here. What's the, no economic risk to the town on this because it's just a pass-through grant should we get it, right?
Correct.
Okay, I'm good with this one, and thank you for bringing it to our attention. I think anything we can do to bring parcels like this, A, to get them remediated from an environmental standpoint is very good. B, to get them on the tax rolls in the appropriate manner, I think is very good for the town. So, well done on this one from my perspective.
Nancy?
Yeah, just a follow-up question, because I agree, if there's no downside, I'm just referring to one email that we got that said, why do we continue to sort of fix this site up, and why not leave it to either the past developer or the future developer? Can you just talk about that? You weren't CC'd on this email, but I hear your point. It's sort of just a pass-through, and there doesn't seem to be a downside, but am I missing something? Because this resident has written a couple of times seeming kind of insistent, so I'm just wondering if I'm missing something.
I'm not sure what they might be referring to. They may be confused in terms of this site versus another site. We haven't worked on 81 Black Rock Turnpike in the past. 81 Black Rock Turnpike is about a 5-acre parcel sandwiched between 111 Black Rock Turnpike, where Illicit Brewing is hopefully planning to open soon, and then the Fairfield Metro Center train station itself. Obviously there's a history with private development associated with the Fairfield Metro Center train station parking lot, and then 3-party agreement that we talked about last week. But this is a distinct separate parcel that's under different ownership, and the development company is a different entity altogether as well. So like Tom, I don't see a downside. If grant funds are awarded, there will be terms and conditions that will have to go back before this board, and most likely others, for our approval. And Post Road Realty reserves its right to, not accept the grant funds if offered, which is only right because we don't know exactly what funds might be preferred, and what conditions are associated with the grant. There's some general information in the notice of funding availability, but until you actually have the assistance agreement, you don't know exactly how that's going to work as it relates to the pro forma. So I don't see a downside. We haven't partnered on this project before.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. Further questions.
Okay, thank you. I mean, for one, I'm happy that the site is finally going to be cleaned up. It's been like this for a really long time, and it's just good that it's going to be cleaned and it's going to be utilized, hopefully in a more productive way. It's really an eyesore to our town, and so I'm glad that they stepped up and were able to make a deal with the owner of this property, who was fairly difficult to get in touch with for many years. So at any rate, I'm going to open it up. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for your hard work on that. Can I get a motion to consider and act upon the tax refunds as recommended by the tax collector in the amount of $8,448.95?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion on this item? Any discussion from the public? Back to the board. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention a couple of things for the public's edification. After the RTM voted in concurrence with the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance to support the proposal to repair Penfield Pavilion and remediate the contaminated soil under the building, I sent a letter to FEMA requesting reconsideration of the insurance retrograde. Last Thursday, the town received confirmation in writing on the 30th, one day before the deadline, that FEMA made the decision to suspend the CRS retrograde and other potential enforcement actions. And they noted in their letter that as the community has been able to demonstrate evidence of progress toward compliance at Penfield Pavilion. I want to publicly thank Congressman Himes and his staff for working so closely with us and taking quick action and assisting my administration in facilitating these discussions with FEMA, as well as the entire federal delegation for co-signing a letter of reconsideration on our behalf. Spending, obviously, town resources on this project was never certainly anything that any of us celebrate, but I am grateful we won't be losing this town asset that has been enjoyed by so many in our community. The good news is this project will be paid with the surplus funds that we had been responsibly putting away for the last 2 years. I'd like to also mention that on March 22nd, I held a meeting with residents regarding the wastewater treatment control facility. And as we all know, the broken digester and resulting odor complaints. I know this situation has been very frustrating for the residents who live in and around that area. So the goal was to provide an opportunity for the neighbors to ask questions about the operations and learn more about the timeline, about the ongoing project to fix the digester. And I also provided a full update, sort of notes from that meeting that we had in the newsletter for other maybe residents who couldn't attend the meeting. And that can be found listed on the town's website from the 3/31 town update. I was very excited to welcome the Veterans Commissioner to our Connecticut Department of Veterans Affairs Commissioner to our Bigelow Senior Center. As you know, we have been in negotiations with them. They had reached out to us. They were located in Bridgeport and really wanted to move out of the location. They had been working with our senior center a couple of days a week, helping veterans out of the senior center, and it was a good, I thought, great partnership to finally have them here, and it was wonderful. He came down, and there was a lot of area veterans that joined us that day, and I think it's going to be a huge asset to have the Department of Veterans Affairs right here in the town of Fairfield, because they do a ton of work for veterans and their families, connecting them with resources and programs tailored specifically for them. And I just want to recognize Ramon Agasta and Julie DeMarco for their efforts on behalf of this partnership. So I think it's a source of pride, I would say, for the town. And the RTM will be taking up the Board of Education budget tomorrow night. So if any resident would like to follow along, they can go to www.fairfieldct.org/budget, and they can follow the process. And I just wanted to say happy holidays to everyone celebrating Passover, Easter, or Ramadan. And I'll open it up to the board. Does anyone have any new news to share or anything? Sure, go ahead, Nancy.
Just a follow-up question. You mentioned the passage through the three bodies for Penfield, something we had brought up at last week's meeting, and you said you were going to have a staff meeting to discuss. What was the upshot of forming or adding to the special building committee oversight of Penfield?
We had a really long discussion about it among a whole bunch of other things, and we're still kind of looking into it because it's tricky because it's a multi-layered process, right? So the remediation is the soil piece, which doesn't need a building committee, the removal of the decking and stuff, and then putting it back. The special projects committee does $3 million and up. $3 million, I think, is their cap, if I remember correctly. So we're still trying to figure out, because we're not really building anything. We're just repairing or lowering. So we're still trying to figure that out. The town attorney was away, so we're going to have some more discussions to try to figure out how to move forward with it.
I guess by way of follow-up, I would just want to state for the record, I would encourage you to either create then a new committee for oversight, because again, with a margin of error that's so slim in terms of budget, I think it would benefit everybody, residents, to really have that committee for additional layer of oversight, but
No, I agree. I think so too. Listen, we have very good people on this. The town is very aware. No one wants to, let's just be plain spoken about it, mess this up. And not the contractors, nor does the town or engineering department or anyone involved. We're just trying to figure out how to work because we do have a tight timeline. And the remediation of the soil in conjunction with the compliance with the NOV and all of these things is all very tricky and technical. And we just want to make sure that we don't end up losing more than one beach season. So we want to ensure that we're not, we're doing it expeditiously, but also with oversight. So we're still trying to work on that. But I do hear you loud and clear.
that's it for now.
Okay. Tom, do you have any news or anything?
No, just happy holidays to everybody. I hope everybody gets to take some time and enjoy the time with their families.
And
Agreed.
I hope everyone will be watching UConn tonight. It's very exciting to have UConn playing in the Final Four. It's cool. So I know I'll be tuned in.
Me too, and happy holidays, everybody.
All right, happy holidays.
I will move to adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, have a good night, everyone.